Hey guys, welcome back to another Dragonheir Silent Gods Season 3 video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about all of the new tanks, or defense-based and support heroes coming with Season 3. So we're going to look through them, run through what skills they've got and where I think they could be useful, or whether I do think they are useful. Before I get into that though, I just want to say a huge thank you to Dragonheir Silent Gods for supporting my channel and sponsoring this video. If you are interested in getting involved and trying the game, please do hit the link in my description and get involved today. So, Season 3 is right around the corner, and on the test server I do have access to all of the new heroes coming in the new season. So in this video, like I said, I'm going to be going through the defense and the support heroes that are being added, and we'll talk about my opinion on those and obviously go through what skills they've got and where they could be useful. So I'm going to do it just in order from what they are in the gallery. So first up, we've got a familiar face we would have seen in the campaign before, and that is Victor. So Victor is a support hero. First of all, he's got an aura that increases all allies' accuracy by 50 in all battles. Next up, his passive skill marks the enemy with the hero when the hero inflicts a debuff on them. The mark lasts the same as the debuff. Healing received by the marked target enemy reduces by 35%. And the ultimate energy of the healer, so the person healing them, will also be reduced by 30% as the enemy receives healing. This effect can only be triggered once every 5 seconds. So this is going to be really strong when you're facing, if you're using fighting waves, or even in the arena where there's a designated healer. You can help to keep them controlled and reduce the amount of healing they're able to put out. So that passive alone, it seems incredibly strong to me. It looks like it'll be a lot of fun to play around with, but probably very annoying to face. So next up, we've got the battle skill, Pinpoint Positioning. So that deals fire damage to an enemy and dispels all of their buffs and removes all of their shield, with a 75% chance of inflicting buff prohibition on them for 10 seconds. So this is a very strong battle skill. Obviously, they've noticed that shields have taken a bit of a dominant form through Garius and the staff and lots of different areas. But for PvE, this will be really good for Grave of Curse, especially with the shield removal, buff removal and buff prohibition. It's just going to make that fight so easy if you've got Victor in your team. And probably very good as well for Ancient Battlefield to deal with the buffs there. Obviously dispelling all buffs on a battle skill with a 10-second recharge. It's really effective. You're going to guarantee this is going to go off during the boss's rotation, probably twice. So yeah, all in all, I think that's an incredibly strong battle skill. Next up, we've got the ultimate skill. So deals fire damage to all enemies and converts up to 2 of their buffs to random debuffs, which inherit the remaining duration of the original buffs. After the conversion, if an enemy has less than 2 debuffs, there is a 100% chance of additionally inflicting 2 random debuffs on them for 10 seconds. Randomly selected from the following: so attack penalty, accuracy penalty, blind, buff prohibition, recharging, speed penalty. This is almost a bit like Stanguem from Season 2, the poison hero. It would have been amazing for Mechatalk at the end of Season 2, the amount of debuffs he's bringing. The only thing I wish about this skill is where the debuffs that it places replicate the duration of the original buffs. You could get quite unlucky here and end up placing like a 1-second debuff, especially when using on auto. However, on manual you could kind of work around that a little bit better. But all in all, I think it's a really interesting, very unique ultimate skill. And changing buffs into debuffs is really cool. And I imagine it'll be pretty helpful for certain PvE content as well. And all in all, he's a kind of master at controlling buffs by the looks of it. And I think he'll be pretty useful. I haven't tested him out yet. I've tested a few of the supports. He's one I haven't. But I'll give him a try in some of the dungeons later this week and see how he does. But he looks awesome as well, which is always a positive. In terms of his inspiration effects, his first one reduces the hero's damage taken by 20% when under control. Second one, whenever he's below 60%, he heals by 1% of his health every second. He then gains crit rate, crit damage, and attack from the next 2 inspirations. So damage-wise, he might be able to put out a good amount of damage too. And whenever he's inflicted with control, reduces the duration by 50%. So he's going to be incredibly annoying if he gets fully inspired. Just to check the multipliers there, so 730% attack on all enemies. That's a pretty strong ultimate for a support. I'll do a damage test on him as well at some point and see how he performs. But I imagine he's going to be quite good. So yeah, if he's just using this as kind of against somebody without buffs, you're going to guarantee 2 of these debuffs at all times as well. So yeah, all in all, Victor looks very fun. Next up, we've got Synarell. So Synarell is a fire support again. Aura-wise, increases all allies' attack by 45% in the City of Trials. So that's really good for Pillar of Trials. It's a lot of attack. And then on his passive skill, whenever the hero's skill hits an enemy, there's a 50% chance of inflicting attack penalty 2 on them for 10 seconds, and the infliction cannot be resisted. Also, whenever the hero uses a skill to heal an ally, the hero himself gains a healing of 50% of the current healing granted. Then on his battle skill, he fires 3 fireballs to strike random enemies, each fireball dealing 175% attack, and healing the ally with the currently lowest percentage of HP by 150% of his attack. Finally, on his ultimate skill, selects an ally, dispels all of their debuffs, and grants him invincibility for 5 seconds. When that invincibility expires, he deals 760% attack fire damage to all enemies and heals all allies by 500% of his attack. So timing this is going to be awkward because you're going to need to use this 5 seconds before you actually need your healing to go out, but he is capable of healing a significant amount. As you can see, his base attack is rather good already, but if you're building him with full attack, you can get some seriously strong healing out of him. I tested him very briefly. I will do some more testing to see his true potential, but all in all, he looks to be a very good fire healer, which is actually something they lack. However, they are paired with Radiance this season, so they do have a lot of healing from that. But for future seasons, he's definitely going to be very strong. His passive is really good for the uptime of attack penalty. Obviously 50% chance every time he inflicts damage, and that is for 10 seconds. So I imagine you're probably going to have permanent uptime of attack penalty with him in your team. Once again, obviously that will require some more testing, but it's a really strong addition. It's a very unique passive as well. So we've got Stanguem. Stanguem is the lightning legendary, well, one of the lightning legendary tanks being added to the game. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of this hero. It feels just a slightly upgraded version of Lydia, the lightning epic. So first of all, on the aura, resistance in by 65 in Grand Gladiator Arena battles for all allies. Relatively useful if you're building a resistance team. The passive skill, when in possession of a buff, casts basic attacks cast a lightning chain that bounces between enemies up to 4 times, dealing damage and dispelling 1 buff from them. Each subsequent hit will be reduced by 10%. So this is a very strong battle skill as long as you've got somebody buffing in your team, so you'll obviously make sure you've got that. The passive skill, it is really strong and will help to reduce buffs. So yeah, I mean, all in all, this hero straight away screams PvP. It's going to be very useful in PvP. There's very few wave situations where you're going to want to hit 4 targets and remove their buffs. It just doesn't happen at the moment, and obviously Season 3 might change that. The battle skill, and this is where the hero starts to look a little bit like Lydia. So the hero gains invincibility for 3 seconds, and then gains a 15% max HP when exiting the state. It's great for Stanguem's survival. It just doesn't bring a huge amount to anybody else, so very good for heavy incoming tank damage fights. And onto the ultimate skill. So just to be clear, it is very strong. It's just something that exists through other heroes in the game, and in my opinion, Lightning did need a tank that was kind of on Garius for a buff level. So dispels all debuffs from the hero, grants control, immunity, and defense up 2 to all allies for 10 seconds. These buffs are incredibly strong. I just wish maybe to make this the kind of much better, make it a full team cleanse instead of just on Stanguem. I think it would add a huge amount of value, but it is what it is. All in all, like I said, for single target fights where the tank's taking a beating, it'll be really good. Also for fights where there's a lot of debuffs that you need to manage, control that you need to manage, that control immunity will come in use as well. Next up, we have got, who have we got next? Fathomdown. So Fathomdown is another legendary lightning tank. As you can see on the aura, 45% attack in dungeon battles. That is really strong. His passive skill, hero has a 50% chance of reducing the current damage taken by 50% when taking damage, and heals himself by 8% of his max HP. That can only be triggered once every 3 seconds. So that is really strong as well. That passive is actually very strong in terms of his survival, and kind of what you want to see in a tank. Just like the previous legendary I showed, the battle skill was very good for their survival. So this is definitely a step in the right direction. It is legendary though, so it's not going to be massively accessible for a lot of people. The battle skill gains debuff immunity for 5 seconds, dealing lightning damage to enemies within range, with a 100% chance of inflicting knocked up and a 75% chance of inflicting stunned on them for 3 seconds. So a little bit of control in there on the battle skill while also immuning debuffs. It's a relatively okay battle skill for a tank, I guess. It's nothing kind of crazy. Next up on the ultimate skill, however, casts a spell for 8 seconds, summoning random lightning bolts to strike enemies every 1 second in the meantime, dealing damage to the target and all enemies nearby, with a 75% chance of inflicting attack penalty 2 on them for 5 seconds and reducing their ultimate energy by 5%. This is very like Rose, the Radiance legendary. It's amazing for applying Witch's Remains. You're going to get a really good uptime, but also a really good uptime on attack penalty and reducing their ultimate energy. So I am a big fan of this. I did a little bit of testing of Fathomdown when I was testing out some of the Necrosis new damage dealers. I used him as my tank and he was perfect for Witch's Remains. So yeah, massive fan of Fathomdown. I think this skill kind of takes him to the next level along with his passive skill. So that is all for him. Next up we have got Aladiah. So Aladiah is the Ardreth or the Uteor of Season 3. So throughout the second month of the season, this is where we'll be able to earn this hero. And they are a ice support. Oh, didn't mean to click that. So an ice support. On the passive skill, when an ally with a shield takes damage, there's a 20% chance of inflicting attack penalty 2 on the attacker for 10 seconds, and also grants a 10% of target's max HP plus 1800 enlightenment shield to all allies for 10 seconds as the battle starts. So you're going to be going into fights with a shield straight away, which then could apply attack penalty onto any of your enemies. On the battle skill, deals 300% attack cold damage to an enemy, removes all of their shield. Targeting a non-elite enemy will steal their shield instead. By elite enemies, it mostly means bosses. However, in Feenja, there are certain stages where you'll see elite enemies. These are basically just fights where you'll see, like, for example, there was Torin and Grishnar from memory. It'll be very similar to that, so you wouldn't be able to steal their shield in that situation. Next up on the ultimate skill, deals 650% attack to all enemies with a 50% chance of inflicting frozen for 3 seconds, which makes them unable to launch basic attacks or cast skills but takes 30% less damage. Also grants a 12% target's max HP and 2500% enlightenment shield and control immunity to all allies for 10 seconds. This ultimate is incredibly strong, especially if you picked up the legendary artifact for Elminster. This will be really good on Aladiah. I'm personally definitely going to be going for her. I will do a separate video testing her out and seeing how she performs, but on paper this is a very strong support for Frost that I think they really are in the need for. Especially now paired with Poison, you are a little bit more limited for options compared to Radiance that they had last season. So yeah, Aladiah to me screams that you should definitely go for her if you're able to. And I'd like to think, based on the fact that we're in Season 3 now, people should have a good enough account to be able to really push those continental bosses to try and make sure they do get their hands on her. Next up, we have got Theodemer. So Theodemer is paired with the new legendary Ice support as well. He is an Ice defense-based legendary. His aura grants defense by 45% in Grand Gladiator Arena to all allies. His passive skill, he cannot obtain shields. For each enemy on the field that targets them, he gains 1 stack of Newlywed's Vow, which decreases the damage taken by 5% and increases his healing received by 10%. That stacks up to 5 times, so eventually you could get 25% reduced damage taken and 50% increased healing. And as well as that, he gains the following additional effects when deployed with Feenja. So that's the support I mentioned. He gains invincibility and debuff block for 10 seconds and 100% ultimate energy when he hits 0 HP for the first time during a battle. So he's got a bit of a cheat death when he's paired with her, and obviously does gain some good buffs to make sure he sustains himself after that. On his battle skill, he strikes the enemy 3 times, with each strike dealing 150% cold damage based on defense, and also reduces their ultimate energy by 10%. If the target's ultimate energy is reduced to 0, he gains an additional 25% ultimate energy, and the third strike has a 75% chance of inflicting attack penalty 2 on them for 5 seconds. So one of the big things to point out here is he does scale from defense for his damage, so you will be able to pump some damage into him as well. On his ultimate skill, he gains defense up 2 and damage reduction for 10 seconds, which reduces his damage by 30%. He then deals 700% defense cold damage to all enemies on the board, and has a 100% chance of inflicting taunt on them for 5 seconds. This is a very strong ability, so not only does it do a good chunk of damage based on the multiplier, it taunts everybody on the board, so you're going to be able to pull, say, questers off your back line, or some of those annoying heroes that are in the enemy back line you can't reach. You'll be able to guarantee all of their focus is on Theodemer, which will then trigger his full stacks of his passive most likely in most content. So he'll be gaining extra healing and reduced damage taken. So he is an incredibly strong tank. I desperately want him. However, more so than him, I want his partner Feenja. So Feenja is a ice legendary support. For some of you who've played other games, you may recognise a kind of similar model. But starting off with the aura, enlightenment by 60 in all battles, incredibly strong if you're building a team that all require enlightenment. Or if you're missing a little bit of healing, her healing does scale on enlightenment, so that could be very strong to swap to. Next up, we've got her passive then. So Bride's Last Wish. Whenever an ally gains or loses a buff, the hero heals them by 7.5% of their max HP and 1200% of her enlightenment. This effect can only be triggered once every 3 seconds, and whenever it's healing Theodemer, the healing effect is further increased by 50%. So the two of them are going to be a force to be reckoned with. He is going to very much struggle to die because she's providing him additional healing every time he gets or loses a buff. He obviously does provide buffs himself. So yeah, it's a very strong combination. Next up, we've got the battle skill. Dispels all debuffs from the ally with the currently lowest percentage of HP. Heals them by 10% of their max HP and 2000% enlightenment, and grants recovery over time for 5 seconds, which will heal 1.5% of their max HP every second. Next up, we've got the ultimate skill. Heals all allies by 20% of their target's max HP, 3000% enlightenment, grants resistance up 2 for 10 seconds, and deals cold damage to enemies within range. In the meantime, with a 100% chance of inflicting them with blind for 8 seconds, ignoring 50% of their resistance. So you're not going to have to build her with much accuracy due to the fact she's ignoring half of their resistance. And as well as that, the blind that she places prevents basic attacks hitting their targets. So it's very strong for, especially against things like Dauntless, where they're basic attacking constantly, basically makes them nullified for 8 seconds. But all in all, it's a very nice bit of control that just helps to alleviate the pressure that's on you a little bit. So that is all for the legendaries. So there is 2 supports that I'm going to show you now, one of which is from Pillar of Trials, the other is from Feenja. So I believe this one is from Feenja. That's Vex, the Lightning Epic support. So Vex's aura is 40 accuracy in all battles. Passive skill, heroes damage taken from enemy heroes will not exceed 35% of the hero's max HP in each single hit. Battle skill strikes the current enemy 2 times, each dealing 210% lightning damage with a 50% chance of inflicting stun on them for 4 seconds. And the ultimate skill strikes an enemy 3 times, with each strike dealing lightning damage and dispelling 1 buff from them. Grants an additional debuff immunity to all allies for 10 seconds if all buffs on the enemy are dispelled. So this will be very strong for dungeons where you're facing a lot of buffs on the boss, like Grave of Venom, Ancient Battlefield, potentially some other bosses. But in general, I have not tested this yet, but I want to see if you use this ultimate against something that doesn't have any buffs to dispel, whether you get that debuff immunity. I will find that out. I believe this hero, as I mentioned, is from Feenja, which you get for, I think it's 60 levels off the top of my head. So it should be fairly attainable for most people, if not everybody. So it could just be a great way of incorporating debuff immunity into your account if you don't already have a hero who covers that. So potentially a really nice pickup and really nice addition. I'm not sure I personally have a use for her. but it's something obviously we don't know. We don't know exactly what's coming towards the end of the season. Debuff immunity could be vital, and you might want to make sure you've got multiple teams that can cover the debuff immunity. So next up, we've got the hero from the Pillar of Trials. That is Baelvernal here. So this is a necrosis support. The passive skill, when an ally takes damage, there's a 10% chance of converting 20% of their damage taken into healing. When an enemy receives healing, there's a 10% chance of converting 20% of their healing into damage. So this will be really cool against fights where enemies are receiving a lot of healing, because you could turn 20% of that into damage. Just kind of reduces the amount of damage, amount of healing the enemies are gaining. But yeah, it's just a bit unique, really. That's the thing I like about it. On the battle skill, fires an orb that can bounce up to 6 times between enemies, dealing 160% attack, necrotic damage, each time with a 40% chance of inflicting stun for 3 seconds. So, as much as the developers have removed stun set from the game, they have added a very cool hero for AoE stunning. So this does book up to 50% chance of inflicting stun for 3 seconds. Bouncing 6 times, you're going to land quite a lot of stuns, more than you would most likely with a stun set. And that is on a low cooldown as well. So this is a really strong battle skill, and conveniently it is from Pillar of Trials, which is one of the most used places of stun set. So to get this, I believe you need to reach 60 stars, which is 20 of each stage, or obviously a little bit more on one, maybe if you can't push another one as much. But once again, this should be fairly obtainable for most people towards the end of the season. At the very least, I'd like to think you'd be able to clear stage 20. Next up, we've got the ultimate skill. Strikes an enemy within range 3 times, each dealing 220% attack and necrotic damage, with a 50% chance of reducing their turn meter ultimate energy by 10%. It's not a huge drop at all. So you could potentially drop their ultimate energy by 30%. However, with it being a 50% chance, it's unlikely that you're going to get a huge amount of benefit from that ultimate skill. However, it could hit relatively hard. It'll be 660% multiplier all in all. So not the craziest damage, but it could be relatively useful. But I think this hero is really all about that battle skill, because the amount of stuns you can get from this is very strong, and it really will help you for your necrosis and lightning teams if you're needing some extra control. So that is all of the supports and tanks being added to the game. I will be doing separate videos on each of the damage types. With there being 31 heroes, it's a lot to reel off in one video, so I'd rather give it a little bit more attention and split it over a few videos for you, so I can really give you my opinion. In terms of who I think is kind of the best ones here, first of all, the first one I want to bring attention to is the free legendary that we're all going to be able to get in Season 3. That is Aladiah. I think this is a really good addition, brings a really cool kit to an element that really does need that extra support if you don't have some of the top tier legendaries. But after that, the fire legendary Synarell looks really cool with that passive skill and all the healing. But I am a sucker for these two. I think they're going to be incredible. Especially Feenja. I really want to get her. She's probably number 1 on my wish list outside of a certain legendary, which you may or may not have seen being absolutely broken at the moment. Of course, we're talking about Rook, the corrosion legendary. I will show that more in the video that I do on them. But yeah, Feenja looks incredibly strong for me as a ice or an ice and poison healer. So definitely one to keep an eye out for. If you are lucky enough to get her, she will do a lot of healing for you. So that is all for this video, guys. Before I go, I just want to say once again a massive thank you to Dragonheir for sponsoring the video. And remember, if you do want to give the game a go, please do hit the link in the description or the pinned comment, and I'll see you in the next one.